Hello, I'm Lisa Eshelman, Associate Director for Pro Bono at the Ohio Legal Assistance Foundation and Chair of the 2007 Mock Trial Case Committee. This year, the Ohio Center for Law-Related Education presents to you the City of Strawberry Hills versus Chris Washington. This case is based upon the proper limitations of a government's right to take private property under the Fifth Amendment eminent domain provision. Under that authority, state and local governments may, with or without the consent of the private property owner, pay reasonable compensation to the landowner and then take ownership and possession of the property. In this hypothetical case, the City of Strawberry Hills wants to use its eminent domain power to acquire a house owned by the defendant, Chris Washington. The city then wants to tear down that home and use the land not for a public project, but rather to permit a private developer to build a mixed-use development as part of an urban revitalization project. The home in which Chris Washington resides has been in the family since the 1930s and was built at the beginning of the 20th century. While a number of houses in the neighborhood have significantly deteriorated, Washington's house is well maintained and meets all applicable housing codes. However, 3 streets over from Washington's home is a new neighborhood development in which the original houses, due to blighted and deteriorated condition, have been torn down and replaced with small cluster homes or condominiums. The developer seeks to obtain Washington's property with the city's help as part of a larger revitalization project. This project would turn Washington's rather self-contained neighborhood into a new mixed-use development. The new development would come complete with new residential housing and a baseball stadium that the developer hopes will attract a professional minor league team. The developer contends that continued revitalization of the neighborhood where Washington resides is critical if the entire area is to be restored and be attractive to new owners. For more than a year, the developer has attempted to get Washington to agree to sell the house, but Washington is not interested. After Washington refused the developer's offers, the City of Strawberry Hills initiated condemnation proceedings to obtain the property. The city did this by first declaring that the property was condemned and then by taking the property by eminent domain. Washington has now filed a motion asking the court to determine if the City of Strawberry Hills can establish that it can properly take the house by eminent domain so the developer may move forward with the privately funded revitalization project. This case is now before the court on a motion for injunctive relief filed by defendant Chris Washington. Washington seeks a court order barring the plaintiff, City of Strawberry Hills, from acquiring Washington's property through eminent domain. The court concludes that a hearing on the defendant's motion is necessary so that the court will have a clear understanding of all relevant factual information and the legal arguments concerning the city's proposed taking of the property and the defendant's objection to that taking. In their factual presentations, the parties should be prepared to present evidence concerning the nature of the property at issue, the reasons for the proposed taking of the property, and the proposed new uses for the property. In their legal arguments, the parties should focus in particular on the distinctions, if any, between the Takings Clause of the U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment and the Takings Clause of the Ohio Constitution. The court must decide in this case whether the city has a legal right to take the property or whether instead the defendant is entitled to an injunction barring the city from proceeding with its efforts to take the land. The plaintiff will argue that Chris Washington's request to bar the city from taking his private property should be denied. The city's position will focus on these arguments. First, the loss of commercial activity, such as entertainment venues and the public recreation center in the city, has led to increasing unemployment rates, and as a result of economic distress, property values in the city have declined. Second, both the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and Article 1, Section 19 of the Ohio Constitution allow private property to be taken for a public use as long as just compensation is paid to the property owners. Third, that the City Council has determined through prior research that considerable economic benefits will inure to the City of Strawberry Hills if the developer's comprehensive development plan is implemented. The plaintiff will bring to the court two of the three following witnesses: Sidney Carnegie, principal and owner of Carnegie and Associates, who has been selected by McGuffin Enterprises to conduct an economic assessment of Strawberry Hills. Carnegie is prepared to testify that through the use of phone surveys, research into the number of vacant structures, and the crime rate in the proposed revitalization area, rebuilding the area would create many jobs and bring in millions of dollars to the currently blighted area. Jordan Taylor, a city official in Strawberry Hills, will testify that after growing up in Strawberry Hills, he or she moved back after attending Cardinal College. Upon moving back to his or her hometown, he or she discovered that this once vibrant community had become abandoned with increasing unemployment rates. Additionally, Taylor has made contact with the owner of a minor league baseball team who is very interested in bringing his team to the newly rebuilt Strawberry Hills, complete with a new baseball stadium. The stadium may even be named after Seamus Stop Sign O'Toole, a local baseball legend. Finally, E.B. Martin is president and CEO of McGuffin Enterprises. This real estate development company has been in the business of revitalizing struggling communities for the last 50 years. Martin will testify that the economic assessment done by Carnegie and Associates and his or her proven success record in revitalizing other communities is proof enough that taking Chris Washington's home will prove, in the long run, that it was for the greater good of the community overall. The defense will argue that Chris Washington's request to keep his or her home should be granted. The defense's position will focus on these arguments. First, that because the City Council would take Washington's home only to give it to E.B. Martin for the redevelopment plan, is to use the property for private, not public use, which is against Ohio's Constitution. Second, that Chris Washington's home is not only valuable to him or her as the place he or she has grown up and raised his or her child, but is also the boyhood home of Seamus Stop Sign O'Toole, a professional baseball player, which makes the home a historic landmark. Third, that the area in Strawberry Hills around the Washington's property qualifies as an authentic neighborhood, as defined by the Congress for the new urbanism. This means it has a discernible center, there are small shops within walking distance, and a mix of older dwellings as well as a park and schools. The defense will bring to the court two of the three following witnesses. Chris Washington is the property owner of the house located at 1316 West Olive Street. Washington will testify that not only is the house sentimental to him or her, but it is also somewhat historic, having been built in 1909 as a Sears house, and having been the boyhood home of famous baseball player Seamus Stop Sign O'Toole. Furthermore, this witness will testify on the character of E.B. Martin, describing him as a fast talker and slick salesman. F.W. Saarinen, a well-known and respected architect and urban planner, is prepared to testify on the topic of new urbanism and the importance of keeping the current design of the neighborhood as is, a place to live and raise a family, and not a cookie-cutter subdivision. The area of Strawberry Hills around the Washington property can be described as a mixed-use neighborhood which is very pedestrian-friendly with shops and commercial uses within a short distance of people's homes. It is his or her expert opinion that the proposed development is not in the public interest and does not justify the taking of private property. Additionally, Pat Garrett, a councilperson for the city of Strawberry Hills, will comment on the fact that Jordan Taylor, a fellow councilperson and city official, failed to disclose the fact that he or she partnered with E.B. Martin on a past project in Minnesota that closely resembles the proposed project in Strawberry Hills. Garrett will go on to explain that this project was barely completed, had serious cost overruns, and the promised tax revenue has never appeared. As a longtime resident of Strawberry Hills, Pat Garrett has several very serious concerns with the advancement of this revitalization project. The exhibits in this trial include a biography of Seamus Stop Sign O'Toole, a photo of Chris Washington's house, and 2 maps depicting Strawberry Hills before the proposed revitalization project and after. On one last note, you perhaps have heard about a recent Ohio Supreme Court decision addressing the government's power to take private property using eminent domain. For purposes of this case, we want you to assume that the decision has not yet been issued. Your job is to present the strongest evidence and the best legal arguments that can be offered on one side or the other of the hypothetical scenario described in the case materials. The attorneys who have prepared those materials have highlighted particular facts and certain court decisions in an effort to create an evenly balanced scenario, and you should not rely on any court decisions or other legal information beyond the information provided to you in the case materials. The Ohio Center for Law-Related Education and the Case Committee for the City of Strawberry Hills versus Chris Washington hopes you will find this case challenging and thought-provoking, and that it will give you a greater understanding of the U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment and its relationship with Ohio's Constitution. Good luck.